I like to watch videos about animals and their behaviors. And people are surprised, even scientists, right? They have a Ph.D. in something related to animals, zoology or biology or ecology or taxonomy, and they're surprised if they see like a hippopotamus eating hippopotamus. And then they do research and they find there has been some data about that. It's the same thing with people. We don't think people do certain behaviors, even though the information is there. We bury it. But even with other animals, we're so infected by human-chauvinism, we think we know everything about them. And so, for example, cougars. Cougars have been observed and will be observed to collaborate more. And we didn't used to think that, and it's not like it's never been observed. It's just that it takes time for us to catch up to the natural world with our human chauvinism nonsense. So that cougars can collaborate more than people do is not something we want to talk about. We don't want to believe they're capable of what we think is a human behavior, even though we're not as good at collaborating as we think we are. So even when we make observations and they're documented objectively, like with a video, when we don't have the right apps to interpret the observation properly, what's the use thinking that we have good observation skills? I mean, we'll document all certain things, but then an assumption about why an animal or a person did something lasts for so long that even when it's proven wrong, it still remains part of reality of the collective unconscious, because we're so lacking in critical thinking and objective inquiry type skills that the people, let's say, that became famous with a false interpretation of an observation or documented observance won't suddenly write a big article to say, oh man, 10 years later, I led you guys wrong. I went with the data I had. And I didn't even write my article in an objective way, and I probably still won a Nobel Prize or got the respect of my peers, which, applied certainty to my thesis or theory that everybody bought into because of their human chauvinism, not very scientific. And are they going to write 10 years later or return their Nobel Prize and say, I led you wrong because I was so certain, but this was an anomaly. It's an anomaly that is explained scientifically, but to actually have made it into the norm with the assumptions of a few observations, even though they were well documented, is nonsense, right? It's pop science. Is that the term, pop science or meta-science? Science that is not as reliable as we think it is. There's interesting oxymorons that are still floating around a lot. Christian values, Christian science, things like this. Economic growth is accurate, but you could add also towards self-destruction at the end, right? But if you say economic life, oh man, is there a human concept that no other species has that is as destructive to life as economics? The people primates, you silly Homo communia. You should stop buying into your own image so much and just come meditate on the beach for a quiet walk and just say, what is it that I'm wrong about that I could now start testing to see? Because I've heard people say this about me, or I've heard different points of view. If I'm that smart, how can I catalog whether this is possible or not? And sometimes, if you discover that you are wrong, or it is, doesn't mean that you go from one extreme to the other. You just say that so far the data we have is this is a 30% probability of observing, let's say, cougars engaging in this kind of behavior. And when you get good at that, you will have partially cured yourselves a little bit of your human chauvinism. So maybe then apply Apply it to yourselves. Okay, we think that our species is sentient and sapient, and how do we define these? So, man, this is turning into a good blog. I think I'm going to post this third video. I'm going to post the first two on Facebook and this one on YouTube. So what I was saying was that if we get good enough at maybe reevaluating our interpretations of other animals, because we're an animal, is maybe we can start doing it with ourselves. So this is how we define sentience and sapience, and we say our species is like this. Okay, so if we say our species is like this, it's not just my best friend or the guy that's very popular on TV or my neighbor or who I think I am, but it's a false interpretation of myself that even I buy into, and I keep selling it every day. But if you say species, you're talking about the majority, and you're not talking about 70%, you're talking about more. So again, when you say our species, you can talk biologically and be at numbers approaching, 98, 99%. But if you're talking about behaviors, I caution you, because sentience and sapience are related to behaviors. They're not like how many fingers we have or in what method we walk or how our bones are arranged. This is about behaviors. So if you evaluate this properly, including everybody, not just your community or people that go to church with you, is you will see that sentience and sapience do not, the definitions, objectively apply to our species. I dare somebody that's famous, that won awards, to write an article about that. Yeah, because then I'll be able to take a day off and maybe enjoy a walk at the beach. If somebody else is doing a real objective science like that.